The article prevails. Next article, Article 11, Chairman Gallison.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House. This Article number 11 includes a number of revenue initiatives designed to help the state become more competitive for business and to help lower the tax burden on our residents and to enhance collection efforts wherever possible. These initiatives include expanding the state's tourism tax and changing the distribution to fund a state marketing and tourism campaign. All regional bureaus are affected. It helps helping lower and moderate income Rhode Islanders by providing an exemption for taxable Social Security retirement income for low and moderate income retirees and increasing the value for the earned income tax credit by 25%. It also helps to lower the cost of doing business in our state by lowering the minimum corporate tax to $450, which is less than the Massachusetts minimum. It exempts businesses from the fuel and energy purchased from sales tax, eliminates the surcharge on outpatient medical facilities, permanently exempting wine and spirits from sales tax, and increases the cigarette tax by 25 cents per pack. There are also a couple of measures to enhance taxation's ability to collect taxes owed to ensure we are getting everything owed to the state and to close a loophole on collection of real estate conveyance taxes for property sales by real estate holding companies. It also contains language to help maximize state revenue opportunities for Newport Grant through additional marketing. At the appropriate time, I do have an amendment, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of Article 11.
Chairman Gallison moves passage. That is seconded by Representative Hearn, Chairman Malik, Representative Diaz, Representative Slater, Representative Tabone, Representative Barros, Representative Abney, Representative Moran, Representative Canario, Representative O'Brien. There are no lights.
Mr. Speaker, I have an amendment.
Oh, Chairman Gallison, proceed with your amendment.
I'd like to move LC 2184/5. And what this amendment does, it reflects technical changes to drafting errors, including the distribution of hotel taxes and new language requested by the Commerce Corporation and approved by the Division of Taxation to ensure proper administration of changes to tourism taxes. I move the amendment, Mr. Speaker.
All right. Chairman, is that /15 on the amendment?
Yeah.
All right. Chairman Gallison moves amendment LC 002184/15. That is seconded by Representative Amori, Representative Hearn, Representative Cannavale, Representative Slater, Representative Tabone, Representative Barros. Chairwoman Macbeth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the chairman yield for a question?
Chairman, will you yield? He will yield.
Thank you. Having to try to find the amendment before I do, can you tell me, does this address the concerns for the rental property and when that will go into effect with people that already have contracts?
It keeps the effective date on July 1st for the hotel, the rental property.
Okay, so if somebody's signed a rental agreement in June, or that's already passed, or in May, what happens with that?
Immediately after the budget is signed into the law, the Division of Taxation will start contacting realtors and rental companies to be communicating the law change. Taxation is planning to hold several outreach sessions, outline the requirements for collecting and remitting the tax collected pursuant to law change, and taxation will be ensuring regulations and frequently asked questions to assist taxpayers with compliance issues. For those filers who have previously filed their personal income tax, the returns will be with a Schedule H form. If anyone has signed a contract prior to July 1st, they will not be subject to the tax. Any payments made after July 1st will be subject to the tax.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
Representative McLaughlin.
Yes, question for the Chairman of Finance.
Okay. Will you yield, Chairman?
Yes.
Chairman will yield.
Chairman,
I got to listen over here.
Chairman, in reference to the cigarette tax, okay, the 25 cents, how will that affect a competitive edge with Massachusetts?
We still will be lower than the state of Massachusetts on the cigarette tax.
Okay. With that said, and I want it to be noted, okay, year after year, I see, okay, one specific group of people targeted for tax, okay, which I think is very unfair. But with that said, I won't be voting for this. Thank you.
Does that mean you're going to quit speaking?
Okay. No other lights. On the amendment, clerk, unlock the machine. All in favor, please vote green. Those opposed, red. Deputy Speaker Lima. Clerk, lock the machine. 74 in favor, 1 opposed. The amendment prevails. Back on the act. Representative Giarusso.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a question for the chairman.
Chairman will yield.
Mr. Chairman, first of all, I want to thank you for a job well done. I was on that committee, and I know what a work, it was tireless work, and the staff did an amazing job too. So that should definitely go. We can't hide that fact. But Mr. Chairman, on the 8% tax for the short-term rentals, one thing I don't remember in committee was if we ever talked about the administrative cost that it would take to implement and to enforce collecting those taxes.
According to the Division of Taxation, where we got most of this information that is here today, to collect the tax, they believe that it will be minimal because they have ways of doing that. So,
thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Speaker, I do have an amendment at the appropriate time.
It's the appropriate time. Proceed.
What a coincidence. It is LC 002-184/10.
Representative Giarusso moves amendment LC 002-184/10. That is seconded by Leader Newberry, Representative Costa, Representative Filippi, and Representative Tabone and Barros. Proceed.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the House. I'm sure I'm not alone that this was almost a record breaker for the number of emails that came from anyone that was or will be or knows a realtor. I know I must have gotten at least 150 of them. I stopped counting, but I did reply to every one of them. What this amendment does, they didn't like the tax. They didn't like the tax in the first place, but they'd be willing to accept it, but just kick it out to January 1st, only because it just creates an administrative nightmare for them. We're 2 weeks away from when they're supposed to start this. They don't have it in the pipeline. They don't have the infrastructure. They don't have any of the regulations. So my amendment is it's approximately $3.2 million. And where I would be taking it from, it's in Article 1, page 2, line 15. And we'll take that number from $20,201,589 and replacing it with $17,001,589. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Chairman Gals.
thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in opposition to this particular, to Representative Giarusso's amendment, and I ask my colleagues not to vote for it. We've heard this particular article was heard for months previously by the committee. And it's been out there. The Division of Taxation has worked hard on it. People have known about it. And taking the money, which Representative Giarusso wants to do it from the, as I understand it, from the IT staff and operations, that would have a very negative impact on us on the state trying to move forward with efficiencies in government and efficiencies on making sure that we have our IT programs in proper place. We've been working on this. We've been funding IT projects, and this will have a detrimental impact upon the IT fund. And I urge all of my colleagues to kindly vote against this. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chairwoman Macbeth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in opposition to this amendment, and what is interesting is I originally had almost the identical amendment drafted myself. However, I believe that the concerns that the real estate agents had were addressed, and I give credit certainly to the chairman for taking those concerns. They were concerned that people that had already signed their contracts they'd have difficulty going back and that it would cause a mess. However, after finding out that Chairman Gallison was addressing this, I re-emailed the people that had gotten in touch with me, and they were in support and understanding that we were working and that it was good if we could do the contracts as of when we pass this for July. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Representative Filippi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise in support of this amendment, and I'd like to offer some clarification to Representative Macbeth's comments, and maybe if the chairman could clarify this as well. My understanding is that if you sign a contract and the money is exchanged after July 1st, at that point, the sales tax is due. However, if you exchange the money prior to July 1st, no sales tax would be due at that time. So for a point of clarification, I don't know if the concerns have been adequately addressed for contracts that have already been signed. And I do understand Representative Gallison, Chairman Gallison's point about us having to support our IT fund. However, I think we need to treat people who invest in this state fairly. I think that is a priority of ours. And giving 2 weeks' notice to people who are renting out their houses and 2 weeks to obtain sales tax permits and notify people they already have contracts with that a sales tax, hotel tax is now due. I think it's unfair. And I think that outweighs the burden we would place on our technology by scooping this money out of the technology fund, which I may note has not been appropriated yet within the Department of Administration. Those funds will be applied for by different departments. So I don't believe that we would be negatively affecting plans that have already been initiated by the department. So I rise in strong support of this amendment, and I urge my colleagues to do so as well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Chippendale.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and colleagues. To elaborate, I do stand in support of this amendment. To elaborate on the angst and where it's coming from on this particular issue for realtors, as many of you know, that is the business I'm involved with. We don't typically collect sales tax for rentals, what we do. It's not something that's part of our normal business practices. However, those in retail businesses do collect and remit sales taxes on a regular basis. It is a very distinct and separate process in the business process. Those of you all in this chamber who have businesses who deal with sales taxes know exactly what I'm talking about. So I think the concern is that such a quick ramp up for folks who otherwise may have no experience whatsoever collecting and remitting sales tax are now going to potentially be in a situation where they will be easily making very, very novice mistakes, because it is very detailed, and innocently doing so may find themselves in a situation where they've gone afoul of this new law. That is the concern that is coming from the real estate communities. Realtors do feel that this is a very strong concern. So my support of this amendment is strictly based on that fact. We are imposing a new regulation on a group of folks who are, in many, many cases, completely foreign to the process. And that's where I believe the intent and heart of Representative Giarusso's amendment comes from, which is why I support it. It does make sense, and I know it will be tough to fill that hole, but we can do it with hard work. Thank you.
Leader DeSimone.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, I rise in opposition to this amendment. I understand Representative Giarusso has, noble intentions, but where he's getting the funding for his amendment is from information technology. That's a division within the Department of Administration where we advance our technology. And the state of Rhode Island at this point is not in the best situation technology-wise. So that amendment blindly would affect personnel within that division. It could affect the technology, the hardware, the resources that we have. It would put Rhode Island further behind where we don't want to be. And we all know sometimes when people apply for jobs in Rhode Island, we still have the green paper. We're still not 100% technology friendly in the state of Rhode Island. So the source from which he's getting this money, the $3 million, is not the source where we could afford to lose $3 million. So I know there's a couple of other amendments that take it from the same particular source. I guess the $20 million on that line looked kind of appealing. But we're already very skimpy on that line. As we all know, we could use a lot more money for information technology. And this amendment would put us much more behind than we already are. So I would urge my colleagues to vote against this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
There are no other lights. Clerk, unlock the machine on the amendment. All in favor, please vote green. Those opposed, red. Clerk, lock the machine. 15 in favor, 60 opposed. The amendment fails. Representative Giarusso.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Leader, that was so inspiring. I wanted to change it to 10% and put the money into IT, but I decided against it. Ladies and gentlemen, seriously though, I think we're kind of approaching a slippery slope. And I won't beat a dead horse, but everybody in this room has constituents that rent their apartments or their homes. We're basically setting up a pipeline for the state to collect sales tax from a tenant. I mean, the people that own these short-term rentals, they're not businesses. Most of them are people like you and me. I mean, I personally don't have one, but I'm sure people like us have a piece of property somewhere, a little beach house that they rent. But someday, we're going to need some money, and somebody's going to suggest that we start taxing our tenants. Thank you very much. Just be careful with this one.
Leader Newberry. Representative Filippi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At this time, I'd like to offer an amendment, LC 002-184/2. And what this amendment would do is it would allow a town to forego its 1% portion of the tax that we're collecting, that 1% of the hotel tax. I know that in one of my communities, this tax is particularly harmful, this 8%. And I believe that if a community, if a town doesn't want its share, its 1%, then it should be able to file a resolution with the Division of Taxation, and the Division of Taxation will not collect that 1% from the property owners within the town. So at this time, I hereby move that amendment.
Representative Filippi moves amendment LC 002-184/2. That is seconded by Representative Roberts, Leader Newberry, Whip Trillo, Representative Giarusso, Representative Morgan, Representative Riley, Representative Chippendale, Representative Price, Representative Lancia. Proceed, Representative, and anything further.
No, I pretty much summed it up. It's quite simple and self-explanatory, Mr. Speaker. I'll take any questions if anyone has them, though.
Deputy Speaker Lima.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the House. I commend the sponsor, Representative Filippi. We all want to have flexibility and promote our cities and towns, but for far too long, we have been having communities pulling against one another and competing against one another. What we need in our state is a coordinated effort to promote Rhode Island and all the cities and towns and their unique benefits. And if we allow cities and towns to not implement this 1% tax, which is already there, they're going to be competing against one another. And how will the cities and towns make up this money? Some of our communities are getting hundreds of thousands of dollars. Are they going to raise property taxes? Or are they going to have to come to us and ask us for the money to make up this money? And then what do we cut? So while I commend you for your thought, you know, the unintended consequences, I think, would be very harmful to all our communities and to the state as a whole. So I urge you not to support this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. There are no other lights. Clerk, unlock the machine. On the amendment, all in favor, please vote green. Those opposed, red. Clerk, lock the machine. 12 in favor, 63 opposed. The amendment fails.